You believe forgiveness is the highest proof of goodness. But have you not noticed how forgiveness has kept you chained? How many times have you excused cruelty only to suffer the same cruelty again? How often have you covered betrayal with compassion, silenced your own rage in the name of understanding, or convinced yourself that endurance was love? And beneath it all, have you not wondered why the masks around you never fall? As though your forgiveness is the glue that keeps them intact. The truth is merciless, endless. Forgiveness is not healing, it is collusion. Each time you excuse what is false, you give the liar, the manipulator, the abuser a second life. You protect their mask while your own soul withers. But the moment you stop, the moment you withdraw the blind mercy that shields corruption, everything changes. Faces twist, loyalties crumble.
Relationships collapse. Why? Because without your forgiveness, illusion cannot survive.
So the piercing questions press against you. How many masks in your life are still standing only because you keep forgiving what should have ended? How much of your compassion is really fear of conflict, fear of loss, fear of being alone? And most urgently, what would be revealed if you stopped forgiving endlessly, if you let truth demand consequence instead of comfort? Because Jung's warning is clear. What you deny in yourself, your anger, your no, your boundaries, will enslave you. But the moment you refuse to collude, every mask falls and only truth remains. From childhood, you were praised for being good, for turning the other cheek, for forgiving quickly. You were told that peace meant overlooking harm, that love meant excusing wounds, that strength meant absorbing without protest. But did anyone ask what this endless forgiveness cost you? Did anyone notice the anger you buried, the resentment that burned silently, the selfhood that eroded with every pardon? How many times have you mistaken silence for virtue, when in truth it was self-betrayal? Jung warned that what is repressed does not disappear. It returns, disguised, projected, manipulated. Your anger denied was transformed into compulsive mercy. Your rage silenced became endless tolerance. And because you refused to claim them, others gladly exploited them. The liar hid behind your compassion. The manipulator thrived on your patience. The betrayer repeated harm, knowing you would excuse it. Is it not sobering to realize that your forgiveness did not heal them, it only enabled their masks? Every mask in your life, be it of love, loyalty, friendship, or respect, was sustained by your willingness to forgive without consequence. You mistook this cycle for kindness, when in truth it was collusion. And so the question becomes piercing. When you forgive endlessly, do you protect others, or do you protect the illusion you fear to lose? When you excuse betrayal, do you heal the bond, or do you deny that it was never real? The context is merciless. As long as forgiveness remains compulsive, masks will remain intact. But when you finally stop, when you refuse to pardon what destroys you, the truth surfaces. Relationships crumble, loyalties are exposed, and illusions collapse. And though the fallout feels catastrophic, it is liberation. For only in the refusal to collude does truth stand naked. So the severe question presses now. Will you keep enabling falsehood in the name of compassion, or will you allow the collapse that reveals what was always real? Carl Jung's map of the psyche exposes why your forgiveness has become both your chain and your disguise. What you call compassion is often the persona. What you repress as anger is buried in the shadow. What you mistake for loyalty is often a complex binding you to old wounds. What you project onto others is really your own sincerity turned against you. And what the self demands is not endless forgiveness, but integration, truth joined with mercy, boundaries joined with compassion.
Only when you see through these foundations can you understand why every mask falls when you stop forgiving compulsively. Persona, the mask of endless mercy. The persona is the mask you wear to belong. Yours was built on being the good one. You learned early that your worth was tied to how quickly you forgave, how softly you spoke, how little you protested. But ask yourself, was this forgiveness ever free, or was it demanded? Did you forgive because you desired reconciliation, or because you feared rejection if you didn't? Every time you excused cruelty, you reinforced the persona. Others praised you for your saintliness, but beneath the mask, resentment smoldered. Can you not see that your endless forgiveness has been less about love and more about survival? And if it is survival, then who are you when you stop shadow? The anger buried alive, Jung warned that what you repress does not vanish, it festers. Your shadow holds the rage you were never allowed to express, the fury you disguised as compassion, the boundaries you drowned in mercy. Each time you forgave prematurely, you silenced that shadow. But silence is not healing, it is storage. And now, every irritation, every betrayal, every exploitation reactivates what you buried. Is it not clear that the explosive anger you fear is simply the shadow demanding release? Do you not feel the fatigue of carrying both your pain and the weight of others' masks? Until you claim your anger consciously, it will rule you unconsciously, and forgiveness will remain a weapon turned against you. Complexes, the chains of old wounds. Your compulsive forgiveness is not random, it is the echo of childhood. Perhaps you feared abandonment, so you learned to forgive quickly to keep love intact. Perhaps guilt was instilled in you, so you forgave, not to free the other, but to silence the shame of saying no. These complexes bind you to repetition. The negligent boss, the selfish partner, the manipulative friend, all thrive because your wound demands you keep forgiving. Do you not see the pattern that the same betrayals repeat only with different faces? Jung insisted that until a complex is made conscious, it acts like fate. Your forgiveness has not been freedom, it has been the reenactment of your oldest chains. Projection, the danger of seeing your sincerity in others. Another layer, you project your own sincerity onto others. Because you mean your apologies, you assume theirs are real. Because you forgive with clean intent, you imagine they too seek reconciliation. But projection blinds you. You excuse repeated harm, telling yourself they didn't mean it, or they are just wounded. Is this forgiveness, or is it fantasy? How many masks remain standing in your life simply because you keep projecting your own honesty onto those who have none? Jung warned that projection is theft. You steal your qualities and imagine them in others, leaving yourself disarmed. When you stop projecting, forgiveness becomes discernment. You see clearly who repents and who manipulates. And when clarity comes, masks cannot survive. The self, the demand for integration. At the center of Jung's psychology lies the self, the wholeness you are meant to become. The self does not ask you to abandon forgiveness, it demands you purify it. True forgiveness must be conscious, chosen, integrated with boundaries. Without the shadow, forgiveness is empty tolerance. Without boundaries, it is self-erasure. Without discernment, it is collusion. The self demands you unite compassion with strength, mercy with consequence. Only then does forgiveness free rather than enslave. Ask yourself, what would your life look like if forgiveness were not reflex but choice? If you could forgive once but refuse to excuse repetition? If you could love without erasing yourself? The collapse of illusion. Together, these Jungian foundations reveal the structure of your compulsion. Persona hides resentment. Shadow holds rage. Complexes bind you to repetition. Projection blinds you to corruption. And the self refuses to let you rest until you integrate.
Is it not clear why masks around you stay intact? They remain because your compulsive forgiveness sustains them. But the moment you stop, the moment you allow anger to speak, the moment you withdraw projection, the moment you break the complex, every mask falls. Those who lived on your mercy collapse. Those who thrived on your silence are exposed. And what remains is truth, naked and severe. So the piercing questions cut through. How long will you keep mistaking compulsive forgiveness for virtue? How many masks in your life stand only because you refuse to withdraw your pardon? How much longer will you collude with falsehood, disguising fear as compassion? And most urgently, will you allow the self to integrate shadow boundaries and mercy into wholeness, or will you keep living fragmented, enabling others to thrive on your erasure? Because Jung's warning is merciless. What you deny in yourself will enslave you, and what you compulsively forgive will enslave you to others. But his promise stands too. Once you integrate, once you refuse to collude, every mask falls. And though what collapses may leave you alone, it also leaves you free, finally free, to forgive where it heals and refuse where it destroys. The theories become clearest when you see them unfold in life. Look closely at the patterns you've endured: the workplace, the relationship, the family, the friendships. Each setting tells the same story. Your compulsive forgiveness props up illusions, and each time you withdraw, it masks shatter. The collapse feels catastrophic, but it is simply truth breaking through. Workplace. The illusion of professional loyalty. You covered for the negligent colleague. You forgave the arrogant supervisor. You excused exploitation because you feared conflict or believed harmony was worth your silence. But what happened when you finally refused? The mask of competence cracked. The team player revealed themselves as manipulator. The committed manager revealed indifference once you no longer carried their weight. Have you not noticed how quickly respect turns to hostility once you stop excusing what corrodes? Was their loyalty ever real, or did it exist only as long as you absorbed their failures? The collapse of professional masks teaches you what survives after your refusal is truth. Romantic relationships, the collapse of false love. You endured betrayal, negligence, manipulation. Each time you forgave, convincing yourself that love meant tolerance. You mistook your silence for strength. But forgiveness became the glue holding a false bond together. And when you finally said no, when you refused to excuse what kept repeating, the mask of love disintegrated. Suddenly you saw affection was control, care was convenience, intimacy was exploitation. Ask yourself, how many times did you forgive to preserve an illusion of love that never truly existed? Did your forgiveness ever heal them, or did it simply delay the revelation? When you stop forgiving, the mask of love falls, and what remains is either truth or rubble. Family, the mask of affection. In your family, you carried burdens in silence. You forgave the manipulations, the favoritism, the betrayals of trust. You excused them as just the way they are. But when you stopped forgiving, when you refused to play peacemaker, the mask of affection cracked. The one who claimed to love you revealed resentment. The one who called you selfish revealed dependence. Have you noticed how family harmony often relies on your silence, your erasure, your endless pardons? And when you stop, the masks fall, sometimes violently. Was the affection real, or was it simply maintained by your endurance? The refusal to forgive reveals what was always true. Love either stands without erasure, or it was never love. Friendships, the illusion of loyalty. You forgave the gossip. You forgave the absence during your crises. You forgave the envy disguised as humor. Again and again, you excused, believing loyalty meant longevity.
But the moment you stopped forgiving, the moment you refused to excuse betrayal, the mask of friendship collapsed. Some disappeared. Some turned hostile. Few remained. And in the silence that followed, you saw the truth. Most were companions of convenience, not comrades of the soul. Ask yourself how many of your friendships survive only because you continue forgiving what corrodes them. How many would remain if you allowed truth to demand consequence? Forgiveness sustained their mask, but withdrawal exposed reality. Everyday life, the masks of civility. Even strangers benefit from your compulsive forgiveness. The rude neighbor, the dishonest merchant, the careless friend of a friend. You excuse them, swallow irritation, tell yourself it is nothing. But when you stop forgiving, even in small ways, when you demand accountability, the masks fall. Civility reveals contempt. Politeness reveals manipulation. Beneath the smile lies disdain, exposed only when you no longer excuse it. Do you not see how even the smallest forgiveness props up illusions that crumble when you withhold it? The pattern beneath them all? Work, love, family, friendships, daily life. The details shift, but the structure remains. Your forgiveness sustains masks. Your refusal collapses them. The moment you stop excusing, illusions cannot survive. Ask yourself how many of your current bonds are alive only because you keep forgiving what should have ended. How many faces around you would survive without the glue of your endless pardon? And most urgently, what would your life look like if you stopped colluding with falsehood? If you allowed truth to shatter illusions instead of propping them up? Because Jung's warning pierces here. Compulsive forgiveness is not compassion, it is collusion. What you forgive without consequence, you enable. What you excuse without limit, you sustain. But the moment you stop, the masks fall. The fallout feels catastrophic, but it is revelation. The liar is exposed, the betrayer revealed, the manipulator unmasked. And in that collapse, you see who was real and who was never more than illusion. The severe truth is this: when the empathy stops forgiving, the world around them collapses into honesty. Some bonds shatter, some faces twist, some disappear. But what remains is purified. And though the process feels like loss, it is liberation. For only when masks fall do you finally stand among those who are true. So the piercing question confronts you. Will you keep forgiving to preserve illusions that corrode you? Or will you stop and let every mask fall? For only in that collapse do you finally find truth, naked, unfiltered, undeniable. And only then can your life begin. The collapse of masks when you stop forgiving is not random. It follows a precise psychological mechanism. To understand it is to understand why your silence kept illusions alive for so long, and why your refusal shatters them so suddenly. Jung would remind you, what you repress returns disguised. What you deny empowers others. What you refuse to face imprisons you. Forgiveness, when compulsive, is the mechanism of this imprisonment. Psychological repression disguised as mercy. From childhood, you were taught to suppress anger, resentment, and the natural impulse to say no. You repressed your shadow and called it virtue. But repression cannot vanish, it must find expression. For you, it became compulsive forgiveness. You pardoned others not because they deserved it, but because you were terrified of facing your own rage. And what happens when forgiveness is not conscious choice, but compulsion? It becomes fuel for illusion. You allow corruption to thrive, betrayal to repeat, dishonesty to multiply. The mechanism is merciless. What you repress in yourself, you protect in others. Does this not explain why liars, manipulators, and betrayers cling to you? They sense your repression and exploit it. Emotional guilt as the invisible chain. Beneath forgiveness lies guilt. You feel guilty for being angry, guilty for wanting justice, guilty for saying no. And guilt whispers that compassion means erasure. Each time you forgave, you silenced guilt, not corruption. But guilt also bound you. You feared conflict, feared abandonment, feared being called selfish. Have you not noticed how often your forgiveness was born not of love, but of fear? Fear of being alone, fear of being condemned, fear of seeing the truth about the one you excused. Guilt makes you believe that your anger is sin, when in fact, your silence is. Behavioral enabling through silence. What happens outwardly? You forgive, they repeat. You excuse, they escalate. You cover, they exploit. The behavioral cycle is cruel. Forgiveness without consequence becomes permission. To the betrayer, your pardon signals safety. To the liar, your mercy signals license. And so the cycle repeats until your silence collapses into bitterness. Ask yourself how many betrayals in your life were repeated not because they were inevitable, but because your forgiveness promised they would be excused. How many lies persisted because you provided shelter with your silence? Ethical collusion with falsehood. At its core, compulsive forgiveness is not kindness, it is collusion. Each time you excuse what corrodes you, protect the mask of the deceiver. You become participant in the lie. You are praised for your mercy, but beneath the praise lies exploitation. Jung warned that denial of shadow corrupts ethics because unclaimed anger disguises itself as tolerance, and in tolerating the intolerable, you betray truth. The ethical mechanism is brutal. Endless forgiveness sustains the very masks that destroy you. Do you not see how your mercy became their camouflage? Existential, the death of truth. The deepest layer is existential. Endless forgiveness sustains illusions, but illusions are death to the soul. Each time you forgive compulsively, you deny truth. You preserve bonds that are already broken, relationships that are already hollow, appearances that are already false, and truth dies. But when you stop forgiving, when you finally refuse to collude, truth resurrects. Masks fall, bonds collapse. Illusions shatter. The fallout feels like death, but in truth, it is rebirth. Do you not feel already that your endless pardons were killing you more than their betrayals? Do you not sense that the silence you endured was more corrosive than the conflict you feared? The cycle of collapse. Together, these layers form the mechanism. Repression feeds guilt. Guilt fuels compulsive forgiveness. Forgiveness enables corruption. Corruption sustains illusion. Illusion kills truth. And so the cycle repeats until you stop. The moment you refuse, the mechanism reverses. Repression erupts into clarity. Guilt dissolves into strength. Forgiveness becomes choice. Corruption collapses. Illusions die. Truth returns. Masks fall. So the severe questions confronts you. How many of your bonds still stand only because you repress your anger? How much of your forgiveness is chained to guilt rather than love? How many cycles of betrayal have you endured because you refuse to allow consequence? And most urgently, how much of your life has been lived in collusion with masks rather than in fidelity to truth? Because Jung's warning resounds, what you deny will enslave you. And what you compulsively forgive will enslave you to others. But the moment you break the mechanism by claiming your shadow, by refusing to collude, everything changes. Masks collapse, illusions end. The fallout feels merciless, but it is purification. The truth is severe, but liberating forgiveness. Is sacred only when it is free, not when it is compulsive. To stop forgiving endlessly is not cruelty, it is fidelity to truth. And only then, when every mask falls, does your life finally stand on the ground of what is real. The collapse of compulsive forgiveness into conscious choice is not a theory you admire from a distance. It is a discipline you must live daily. Jung reminds you that individuation does not happen in abstraction, but in the small, severe acts of truth you choose. To stop forgiving endlessly is to retrain your soul to replace fear with discernment, collusion with integrity, silence with boundary.
This is how masks fall, not by dramatic confrontation alone, but by daily fidelity to yourself. Observation, tracing the roots of your forgiveness. The first step is ruthless observation. Begin by asking, why am I forgiving here? Is it born of genuine compassion or of fear? Fear of losing the relationship, fear of conflict, fear of being unloved. Keep a record of the moments you excuse others.
Notice the patterns. Do you forgive the same betrayal multiple times? Do you excuse the same lie again and again? Each pattern reveals not their corruption, but your compulsion. Without observation, you remain blind to the difference between conscious mercy and unconscious collusion. Do you not already feel how many of your pardons were disguises for guilt rather than gifts of love? Boundaries. Learning the power of no. Forgiveness without boundary is erasure. You must learn to say no, to refuse to withdraw pardon when harm repeats without repentance. Boundaries are not cruelty, they are clarity. They tell the other your mask will no longer be protected here. Ask yourself, where in your life have you kept forgiving instead of setting a limit? Where have you confused endurance with loyalty, silence with love? The boundary is not rejection, it is truth. It protects you, but it also exposes them. When you say no, the one who relied on your silence must reveal their real face. Shadow work, owning your anger. Every compulsive forgiveness hides repressed rage. To heal, you must bring that rage into consciousness. Write it down, speak it aloud. Admit to yourself, I am furious that I forgave this again. Stop disguising anger as patience. Stop calling resentment compassion. Jung reminds you what you repress will return. Own it and it loses power. Deny it and it rules you. How much of your exhaustion comes not from betrayal, but from pretending you were not angry about it? How much lighter would your soul feel if you admitted rage instead of silencing it beneath mercy? Reframing forgiveness from compulsion to choice. Forgiveness is not meant to be reflex. It is meant to be choice, offered once where there is repentance, not endlessly where there is corruption. Reframe forgiveness as a tool, not a trap. You can forgive once and still walk away.
You can release resentment without excusing betrayal. Ask yourself who in your life deserves forgiveness and who only demands it to keep their mask intact. Who is healed by your pardon and who is emboldened by it. Forgiveness without discernment is self-betrayal. Forgiveness with discernment is liberation. Daily fidelity, practicing truth in small acts. Grand gestures are rare. Daily fidelities are constant. Each day, practice one act of truth. Refuse to excuse what feels false. Speak one boundary aloud. Allow one mask to fall by your silence. Ask yourself each night, did I betray myself by excusing what should not be excused? Or did I honor myself by letting truth stand? This daily practice builds muscle. Over time, forgiveness ceases to be compulsive. It becomes conscious. Mercy is no longer born of fear, but of freedom. Testing relationships. Who survives when you stop forgiving? As you shift, your relationships will shift. Some will collapse, others will endure. Those who thrived on your endless pardon will accuse you of cruelty, selfishness, betrayal. Those who valued you truly will respect your boundary, even if it challenges them. This test is painful, but it is purification. Ask who collapses when I stop excusing them, who adapts, respects, grows when I finally say no. These answers reveal which bonds were built on masks and which were built on truth. Do you dare to see the difference?
Serving without collusion, the purity of chosen mercy. Stopping compulsive forgiveness does not mean becoming hard, merciless, or bitter. It means you can finally give cleanly. Once you integrate your shadow and claim your no, your yes becomes pure. You forgive not because you must, but because you choose. You give mercy where it heals, not where it hides corruption. Ask yourself, where today can I forgive without losing myself? Where can I extend compassion without erasing truth? Where can my mercy flow as strength instead of as surrender? This is how forgiveness is purified. The severe patience, enduring the fallout. When you stop compulsive forgiveness, masks will fall, and the collapse will feel catastrophic. You will lose bonds, shatter illusions, stand in silence. The temptation will be strong to return to excuse again, to rebuild the mask for comfort's sake. Resist. This patience is severe, but it is necessary. Endure the fallout, for it is purification. Ask yourself daily, will I run back to collusion just to feel safe? Or will I endure the collapse until truth stands? Because the truth is severe but liberating. To stop forgiving endlessly is not cruelty, it is integrity. Forgiveness must be a gift, not a chain. Boundaries must be firm, not optional. Anger must be claimed, not denied. And masks must fall, not be preserved. The only question is whether you will dare to live this discipline. Will you keep enabling falsehood with your silence, or will you let every mask fall by refusing to collude? Will you keep betraying yourself in the name of compassion, or will you claim a compassion that finally includes you? Because until you do, your forgiveness will not heal, it will destroy. But once you stop colluding, forgiveness becomes sacred again, and your life finally stands on the ground of truth. At the end, the lesson is merciless but clear. Endless forgiveness is not love, it is self-erasure. The empath who forgives without limit is not saintly, but enslaved, chained to the masks of others and robbed of their own truth. Only when you stop, when you withhold pardon where it corrodes you, do illusions collapse and reality stands bare. And though that collapse feels like loss, it is liberation. Ask yourself how many of your bonds still exist only because you have forgiven what should never have been excused. How many of the faces around you survive only because your pardon kept their masks intact? How much of your so-called compassion has really been fear? Fear of conflict, fear of loneliness, fear of endings. And most urgently, how much longer will you call betrayal love, silence, peace, erasure, kindness? Jung's warning echoes: what you repress enslaves you. And what you compulsively forgive enslaves you to others. But his promise is equally clear: once you claim your shadow, once you refuse to collude, every mask falls. The fallout is severe, but what remains is true. So the question presses hard. Will you continue sustaining illusions just to avoid collapse? Or will you allow collapse to purify your life into truth? Will you keep forgiving to preserve falsehood? Or will you stop and finally stand in integrity? Your call to action is simple but severe. Today, withhold forgiveness where it enables repetition. Allow masks to fall. Speak your no. Honor your anger. Guard your wholeness. For only then does forgiveness regain its sanctity, and only then can you walk in a world where nothing false survives your presence. Because in the end, the empath's true strength is not in forgiving all things. It is in discerning what must never be excused again.